Hello, everybody. I'm sorry I can't be with you. I would very much have liked to have shared the workshop experience in Turin. But instead, what I thought I would do is say a few words about how I got involved in creativity and the whole notion of urban reinvention and so on. And it started very much about 30 years ago when, like in Italy, but also in Britain and other places, the world was changing dramatically. It was a bit like a paradigm shift as companies went bankrupt and everything shifted over to the east. But what that did was leave many cities in real decline and in trouble with lots of unemployment. And I began to think, well, what are the resources we have to think about reinvention? And one of them, to me, was quite clearly creativity or imagination, curiosity. And I was thinking that how do you create then, in this period of change, the conditions where people can think, plan and act with imagination? And that was what I meant by creativity at the time. I've slightly changed my ideas here, and I think creativity is probably about creating an environment where we can find interesting opportunities and solve problems in ways that are unusual, but also how people can become and be the best they can be. So that creativity notion expanded over time, and I began to think about creative bureaucracies and things like that, because you can have lots of sectors like, film design and all these that are very interesting. But if the overall context, the public administration, is not positive, all of these things can fall apart. The other thing that was very important to me at the time was the whole idea of the culture of a place. What a place is, where it comes from, where it could go. And that distinctiveness, specialness, seemed to me to be very well connected with the notion of creativity and bringing that together with the notion of physical urban reinvention. So that was really very much my starting point. And what was clear to me, I felt, was that all of these things were taking over from the traditional resources that you think a city has, which may be its location, which may be resources in terms of infrastructure or raw materials, and so on. In short, I was thinking all we had was really what we have in our minds, our brains, and so on. I think it might be useful, perhaps, for you just to try a little thing that I've used recently quite a lot, which is to think of cities in terms of phases in the post-war period. A city 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. And a 0.0 city is the historic city, which is different everywhere. And you can characterize the city 1.0 as being the urban engineering approach to city making, very much led by the physical planners, the construction industries, the road builders and so on, very top down. The factory thinking is the idea of how things work. And culture, for example, has solid built institutions and structures, and there's more money spent on the physical than on the content. 2.0, you could say, is when people begin to feel more about the senses of the city and the feeling of the city, more concerned about design and urban design in particular. And you think then about more participative planning, consulting people, and the economy is more to do perhaps with science parks, often in the middle of nowhere. The other side of it, of course, is using star architects and spectacularizing the city. And some of that's quite fun, of course, but other times it's perhaps too much the branded experience. But that's really also the rise of thinking about the creative economy as a sector. The 3.0 city is perhaps where we want to go, which includes the best of 1 and 2, but is much more co-creative, working together, working in partnership, thinking about seamless connectivity, being aware of the power of the digital and the digital age and how it shapes our social life in different ways, and where third spaces become much more important. I'm sure you can imagine yourself what that 3.0 could be like. And I suppose finally, a little thought is I'm very much now thinking about how you wrap all of this together in a new framework, which I'm calling, for myself at least, the Civic City, where I'm doing a project which is called, a book called The Civic City, Urban Citizenship in a Nomadic Age. And that tries to bring in all of these factors I've discussed, plus how you deal with intergenerational issues, how you bring different cultures together of people, and how you really make sure that the aesthetic is a real imperative in city making so that it is enriching for the senses. So I'll leave you with those few thoughts. And I know that one of the big issues you'll be talking about is things like gentrification, how you develop Aurora in a way that actually still has the good mix of less rich people, perhaps better off people, and so on. Anyway, I leave you to sort out those problems and wish you the best of luck. Goodbye.